Hello, my name is Matthew Schmidt, back again for another video on this channel, Magisterium Explained. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm here today to talk about Vatican II and seeing it as a council of continuity. There are some who say Vatican II is really just a rupture and it changed everything and it's no good for that reason. Well, I want to look at today two texts from Pope Paul VI about Vatican II, and then one text from Pope Benedict XVI about Vatican II to show how the people who were at the council did not advocate for a rupture. Instead, they saw the council in continuity with the past. So, for those who think, well, we look at Vatican II and we have to forget all the past teachings, no, we do not. Now, at the same time, there is development in teaching at Vatican II. There's always development in the church's life, but it's not a development that is going to be something harmful or evil. That doesn't seem likely to me, and it shouldn't seem likely to you. So let's take a look first at Benedict. As you can see here on the Holy See homepage, I'm on Benedict's page, and we're going to take a look at an encyclical that he wrote. You can see all of Benedict's works that he did as Pope. We're going to click on encyclical. We're going to go to Caritas in Veritate. Caritas in Veritate was the last encyclical he wrote. Caritas in Veritate means charity in truth. All right. Now I'm going to scroll down here to paragraph number 7, or paragraph 11, sorry. So here in paragraph 11, we see a discussion of Vatican II, okay? And what's so important in this paragraph is he begins to show how the council does not represent a rupture. It does not represent something that just happened out of nowhere, but really it exists within the continuity of the life of the faith and the life of the church. So I'm not going to read all of this here because we also have to go to paragraph 12. But I want to read just the first sentence. Again, this channel is called Magisterium Explained. So in case you think, well, why am I not giving my opinion? It's because you don't want my opinion. You want the teaching of the church. And so I'm going to give you the teaching of the church and help you to understand it because that's what matters. All right. The publication of Popularum Progressio, which was an encyclical by Paul VI, occurred immediately after the conclusion of the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council. And its opening paragraphs, it clearly indicates its close connection with the council. So you can see how this document, which Benedict is building on in his own document here, is connected to the council. All right. Now he'll go on to emphasize one of the documents from the council, Gaudium et Spes, and then I would too wish to recall here the importance of the Second Vatican Council for Paul VI's encyclical and for the whole of the subsequent social magisterium of the popes. The council probed more deeply what had always belonged to the truth of the faith. Now, think about that for a second. Let me highlight that more clearly. The council probed more deeply. It didn't invent truth. It probed more deeply to what had always belonged to the truth of faith. All right. Now let's go to paragraph 12. And this one has a very important sentence from it as well. Remember, Benedict was at the council, not as Benedict, obviously, but as Father Ratzinger. He was an expert advisor. The link between Popularum Progressio, my Latin isn't that great, I'm sorry, and the Second Vatican Council does not mean that Paul VI's social magisterium marked a break. Notice that word break with that of previous popes, because the council constitutes a deeper exploration of this magisterium within the continuity of the church's life. Full stop. In other words, notice how he uses the word deeper again. Benedict is not trying to assert that Vatican II did something different. Now, you might say, well, it did do something different, but how can you disagree with one of the people who was there? You see the problem with that. Okay, so take a look at the words used. They're specific and they're intentional. Deeper exploration within the continuity. All right. Now, this is an encyclical. This is one of the highest documents a pope can use to teach. I'm going to move to a couple general audiences. Let's see which one I want to do first. We'll do 1966 first. Okay, so this was shortly after the council. Paul VI, as all the popes do, did a general audience on, and he did them actually every Wednesday. But this occurred less than a month after the close of the council. The close of the council, actually, it was a little bit more than a month. It was officially December 8th. So this is January 12th, 1966. The council closed on December 8th, 1965. So now I'd like to, this is actually a really good audience just to understand the whole council, which you can read on your own. But I would like to go down to, I wish they had paragraph numbers, but basically this paragraph right here, where he explicitly talks about the position that some adopt today, all these years later, 60 years later, right? 60 years after 1966. Therefore, anyone who thinks the council represents a departure or rupture, or as some believe, a liberation from the church's traditional teaching, or who think that it authorizes and promotes facile conformity to the mentality of our time and its ephemeral and negative aspects, rather than its certain and scientific ones, or who allows anyone to value and express the truths of faith as they see fit, would be mistaken. So that's a long sentence. That's 3 lines. But basically, if you believe any of these things, you're mistaken. If you believe it's a departure, you would be mistaken. If you believe it's a rupture, you would be mistaken. Now, critically important, if you believe it's a liberation from church traditional teaching, you would be mistaken. So Paul VI specifically says here that you can't just go and look at the traditional teaching and say it's bad, or I don't have to follow it. Liberation means to be freed from it. So no, you can't be freed from that teaching. That's important to keep in mind. Now, obviously, he's going to say that there is something that did occur. There's once again, that word deeper, notice the word deeper, understanding religious studies and so on. And I'm not going to go through all of the things of the council here in this video, but this is a very important audience, because again, it comes just about a month after the council, Wednesday, January 12th, and it's given by the man who is responsible for promulgating all 16 documents of the council. So without Paul VI, the council does not happen. The Pope has to approve the council, and he did. This is how we're to understand it. Now, one more paragraph here, or one more general audience, rather. This is going to be from general audience, let me scroll up, Thursday, April 25th, 1968. So he does it on a Thursday. Usually they're on Wednesdays, but that's neither here nor there. Thursday, April 25th, 1968. So this is about, 3 or so years after the council. Okay. Now, he goes back to this idea of update and renewal, not subversion. So he gets into this long string of looking at what should be the council's view and then what other people's view is. So in other words, look, starting here, renewal, yes. Arbitrary change, no. An ever-living and new history of the church, yes. Historicism that dissolves traditional dogmatic commitment, no. And then he does this for more. Ecumenism, which I've talked about in previous videos. A church open to ecumenical charity, responsible dialogue, recognition of Christian values among separated brothers and sisters, yes. And Irenicism that renounces the truths of the faith, and so on and so forth, no. He goes into religious freedom for all within civil society, yes, as well as the freedom to personally adhere to religion according to the considered choice of one's conscience, yes. But notice, freedom of conscience as a criterion of religious truth, not supported by the authenticity of serious and authorized teaching, no, and so on. So basically, he's juxtaposing correct view and incorrect view. So you should read this if you have struggles with Vatican II. I mean, anyone should read this, really. But I wanted to present in this short video what 2 popes said about the council and how they showed it to be in continuity with what came before it. And once again, they explicitly were there. It isn't just like Pope Francis or Pope Leo talking about the council. Now, when they talk about the council, it's of course authoritative, but they weren't there. When Benedict and Paul VI talk about it, they were there, so they know. And they're saying the same thing that I'll say and that everybody needs to say. It's in continuity, okay? So that's what the Magisterium teaches about Vatican II. It is in continuity with the previous teachings of the church. And we have to be clear that we're not trying to promote condemned errors, because Paul VI very clearly goes into what can and cannot be promoted from the Second Vatican Council. Thank you so much. God bless. And make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. More videos on the Magisterium coming out soon. And, hopefully these videos are helpful to you in understanding different areas of theology. Have a good one.